The remote Cascade Mountain Research Facility stood silhouetted against the star-filled sky, its solar panels gleaming under the moonlight. Dr. Marcus Webb adjusted his thick-rimmed glasses as he reviewed the latest sleep study data, the soft hum of monitoring equipment providing a steady backdrop to his late-night work. At 34, Marcus had dedicated his career to understanding the mysteries of human sleep, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to disrupt his carefully ordered world. A brilliant flash of emerald light suddenly illuminated the forest clearing outside his laboratory window. Marcus looked up from his computer screen, squinting at the unexpected brightness. The light pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, before gradually fading to reveal a sleek, oval-shaped craft hovering silently above the ground. Marcus rubbed his eyes, certain he was experiencing some form of sleep deprivation hallucination. He had been working 18-hour days for the past month, analyzing data from his groundbreaking research on human sleep isolation patterns. Perhaps his mind was finally rebelling against the endless hours of data analysis. The craft's surface shimmered like liquid mercury, and a section of its hull dissolved to reveal a ramp extending toward the ground. Marcus felt his heart rate accelerate as a figure emerged from the interior. The being that stepped onto the ramp was unmistakably feminine in form but unlike any human he had ever encountered. She possessed an ethereal beauty that seemed to defy conventional description. Her skin held a subtle luminescence, as if lit from within by gentle starlight. Long, flowing hair in shades of deep blue and silver cascaded past her shoulders, moving with an otherworldly grace that suggested it might be responding to forces beyond simple gravity. Her eyes were the most striking feature, large and expressive with irises that shifted between shades of gold and amber. Her clothing appeared to be woven from fabric that contained the night sky itself, dark material embedded with points of light that twinkled like distant stars. As she moved, the garment seemed to flow and adapt to her movements, suggesting technology far beyond human understanding. Marcus remained frozen at his laboratory window, his scientific mind warring with his survival instincts. Years of academic training told him to document and analyze what he was witnessing, while his more primitive brain urged him to run or hide. The being outside seemed to sense his presence and turned her gaze directly toward his window. Their eyes met across the distance, and Marcus felt a strange sensation, as if she was somehow reading his thoughts or emotions. She raised one hand in what appeared to be a greeting gesture, her expression curious rather than threatening. Despite every rational thought screaming at him to maintain his distance, Marcus found himself moving toward the facility's main entrance. First contact. The cool mountain air hit Marcus as he stepped outside, his breath forming small clouds in the crisp night atmosphere. The alien woman had descended the ramp and now stood approximately 20 feet away, studying him with the intense focus of a researcher observing a fascinating specimen. "Greetings, human researcher," she said, her voice carrying a melodious quality that seemed to resonate directly in his mind rather than merely reaching his ears. "I am Zephyra of the Celestial Anthropological Institute. I have traveled considerable distance to study your species' sleeping behaviors." Marcus blinked repeatedly, struggling to process the situation. "You speak English?" "Language is merely pattern and meaning," Zephyr replied, tilting her head in a gesture that seemed both alien and somehow familiar. "My neural interface adapts to communication systems as needed. Your linguistic structures are quite fascinating, though unnecessarily complex." "Right," Marcus managed, his scientific curiosity beginning to override his shock. "You said you're here to study sleep behaviors." "I'm actually a sleep researcher myself." Zephyra's eyes brightened with what appeared to be genuine excitement. "Excellent fortune. Perhaps you can explain the puzzling phenomenon my preliminary observations have revealed. Why do humans sleep in isolation? This behavior appears counterintuitive to optimal comfort and security." Marcus found himself relaxing slightly. Despite the extraordinary circumstances, he was dealing with a fellow researcher, albeit one from beyond the stars. "Well, it's not universal. Many humans share sleeping spaces with partners, family members, or pets. But individual sleeping arrangements are common in our culture." "Partners," Zephyr repeated, her expression becoming intensely focused. You refer to mating pairs. But even mated humans often maintain separate sleeping chambers. This suggests sleep serves purposes beyond mere rest. I must understand this phenomenon more completely. The intensity of her gaze made Marcus shift uncomfortably. There was something deeply unsettling about being studied so intently, as if every micro-expression and gesture was being catalogued and analyzed. It's complicated. Privacy, personal space, different sleep schedules, various practical considerations. Privacy, Zephyr mused. Another uniquely human concept. On my world, physical comfort and emotional bonding are prioritized above individual space preferences. We find shared rest enhances both mental and physical well-being significantly. Marcus gestured toward the research facility. Would you like to come inside? I can show you some of my research data on human sleep patterns. It might help answer some of your questions. Zephyr nodded eagerly. Yes, this would be most beneficial to my research objectives. The laboratory tour. The research facility's interior impressed Zephyr with its combination of advanced technology and functional simplicity. Marcus led her through laboratories filled with sleep monitoring equipment, brainwave analysis machines, and comfortable observation rooms designed to replicate natural sleeping environments. This is remarkable, Zephyr commented, running her fingers along the surface of an electroencephalogram machine. Your technology for monitoring neural activity during rest periods is more sophisticated than our initial assessment suggested. Marcus felt a surge of professional pride. We've made significant advances in understanding sleep architecture, REM cycles, and the relationship between sleep quality and overall health. My current research focuses on the psychological effects of sleeping alone versus sharing sleep space. Perfect synchronicity, Zephyr exclaimed. This aligns precisely with my research requirements. May I examine your data? Marcus hesitated. His research contained sensitive information about study participants, but the opportunity to share findings with an alien researcher was unprecedented. I can share some general findings, but individual participant data is confidential. Confidential, Zephyr repeated, frowning slightly. Another privacy concept. Your species appears to value information restriction highly. It's about protecting people's rights and maintaining trust, Marcus explained. Research ethics require that we safeguard participant privacy. Zephyr nodded slowly, though her expression suggested she found the concept puzzling rather than sensible. Very well. Please share what information you consider appropriate. Marcus pulled up several charts and graphs on his main computer system. We found that people who sleep alone often experience higher levels of anxiety and stress hormones compared to those who share sleeping space with trusted companions. However, sleep quality can suffer when sharing space with incompatible sleep patterns. Fascinating contradiction, Zephyr observed, leaning closer to examine the data. Her proximity made Marcus acutely aware of her subtle, pleasant scent, reminiscent of night-blooming flowers and ozone after a thunderstorm. Your species seeks emotional connection but simultaneously maintains physical separation during vulnerable rest periods. When you put it that way, it does sound contradictory, Marcus admitted. But humans are complex. We have competing needs for independence and connection. Zephyr turned to face him directly, her golden eyes studying his face with uncomfortable intensity. You sleep alone, Marcus Webb. I can sense the loneliness patterns in your biorhythms. Why do you choose isolation when your research clearly demonstrates the benefits of companionship? The personal nature of her observation caught Marcus off guard. That's rather personal. And how can you sense my biorhythms? Your species broadcasts emotional and physical states quite clearly to those with appropriate sensory capabilities, Zephyr explained matter-of-factly. Your current state indicates prolonged isolation, elevated stress hormones, and suppressed desire for physical comfort. These patterns are detrimental to optimal health and well-being. Marcus felt heat rising in his cheeks. I'm focused on my research. Personal relationships can be complicated and distracting. Complicated, Zephyr echoed. This word appears frequently in human discourse. Perhaps the complications arise from artificial restrictions rather than natural incompatibility. Before Marcus could respond, Zephyra stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the subtle warmth radiating from her luminescent skin. I propose an experiment. Allow me to observe your natural sleep patterns while providing companionship. This would advance both our research objectives. Marcus stepped back, his heart racing. I don't think that would be appropriate. We've just met, and there are professional boundaries to consider. Boundaries, Zephyra sighed. More artificial restrictions. Very well, Marcus Webb. Perhaps gradual observation will yield better results than immediate experimentation. She moved away, continuing to examine his laboratory equipment, but Marcus remained unsettled by the encounter. There was something about Zephyra's directness and the way she seemed to see through all his carefully constructed defenses that both terrified and intrigued him. Where will you be staying during your research? Marcus asked, trying to regain his professional composure. My vessel provides adequate accommodation, Zephyra replied. However, proximity to research subjects would enhance data collection effectiveness. Do you have additional sleeping chambers in this facility? Marcus considered the request. The facility did have several guest rooms for visiting researchers, and having an alien anthropologist on site would certainly provide unprecedented research opportunities. We have guest quarters available. But you'll need to understand that this is a professional environment with specific protocols and procedures. Zephyra smiled, an expression that transformed her already striking features into something breathtakingly beautiful. I understand your need for protocols, Marcus Webb. I shall endeavor to respect your cultural restrictions while pursuing my research objectives. As Marcus showed Zephyra to the guest quarters, he could not shake the feeling that his carefully ordered world was about to become significantly more complicated. The alien researcher's intense interest in human sleeping behaviors, combined with her apparent ability to read his emotional state, suggested that his peaceful isolation was about to end in ways he could never have anticipated. The night sky outside the facility windows seemed to sparkle with new possibilities, and Marcus found himself wondering if Zephyra's arrival might change more than just his research focus. Her presence had already awakened feelings and desires he had been successfully suppressing for years, and he suspected that her continued proximity would make maintaining his professional distance increasingly difficult. As Zephyra settled into her temporary quarters, her golden eyes gleamed with anticipation for the research challenges ahead, while Marcus lay awake in his own bed, acutely aware of how empty and isolated his sleeping space suddenly felt. The first night of what would become the most extraordinary research project of both their careers had begun, setting the stage for discoveries that would challenge everything they thought they knew about comfort, connection, and the mysterious human need for both solitude and companionship during the vulnerable hours of sleep. Dr. Marcus Webb awakened to the unfamiliar sound of melodic humming drifting through the research facility corridors. Sunlight streamed through his bedroom window, and for a moment he wondered if the previous evening's encounter had been an elaborate dream. The humming grew louder, accompanied by what sounded like conversation in the main laboratory area. Marcus quickly dressed and made his way toward the sounds, finding Zephyra engaged in animated discussion with Elena Rodriguez, the facility's research assistant. Elena appeared both fascinated and slightly overwhelmed by their unexpected visitor, while Zephyra gestured enthusiastically at the sleep monitoring equipment. Good morning, Marcus, Elena called out, her dark eyes bright with excitement. Zephyra has been explaining some fascinating concepts about collective sleep therapy from her homeworld. The potential applications for treating insomnia and anxiety disorders could be revolutionary. Zephyra turned toward Marcus, her golden eyes reflecting genuine warmth. Your colleague possesses exceptional understanding of sleep physiology. She has provided valuable insights into human sleep disorders that complement my observational research. Marcus poured himself coffee from the break room, noting how naturally Elena seemed to interact with Zephyra despite the extraordinary circumstances. I trust you both slept well. Actually, that raises an interesting point, Elena said, exchanging glances with Zephyra. She mentioned that her species considers sleeping alone to be a form of psychological distress. Apparently, isolation during rest periods can lead to what she calls comfort deficiency syndrome. Zephyrah nodded seriously. Prolonged sleep isolation creates neural pathway disruptions that manifest as increased anxiety, reduced empathy, and compromised emotional regulation. Your species appears to suffer from widespread comfort deficiency without recognizing the underlying cause. Marcus found himself both intrigued and skeptical. That's an interesting theory, but human culture has evolved to value privacy and independence. Not everyone experiences loneliness or distress from sleeping alone. Perhaps not consciously, Zephyrah replied, her expression becoming more intense. However, biorhythmic analysis suggests otherwise. Both you and Elena exhibit classic comfort deficiency patterns despite your apparent adaptation to isolation. Elena looked curious rather than offended. What kind of patterns are you detecting? Elevated cortisol production, irregular theta wave patterns during REM sleep, and suppressed oxytocin levels, Zephyrah explained. These indicators suggest your bodies are responding to sleep isolation as a chronic stressor, even when your conscious minds accept the arrangement. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Tom Bradley, the facility's maintenance supervisor. Tom was a practical man in his early 40s who typically focused on keeping the complex equipment functioning properly rather than engaging with research theories. His expression registered surprise at seeing Zephyrah, though Elena had apparently briefed him on their visitor's presence. "Morning, everyone," Tom said, carrying his toolbox toward the environmental control systems. "Hope our guest is finding the accommodations comfortable. Though I have to say, the guest room thermostat registered some unusual readings overnight." Zephyrah looked puzzled. "Unusual in what manner?" "Temperature fluctuations that don't match any normal pattern," Tom explained. "Almost like the room was trying to maintain multiple climate zones simultaneously." "Ah," Zephyrah said, appearing slightly embarrassed. "My physiology unconsciously regulates environmental conditions during rest periods. I shall attempt to suppress this response to avoid disrupting your facility systems." Marcus found himself fascinated by these glimpses into alien biology. "Your body actually controls ambient temperature?" "Among other environmental factors," Zephyrah confirmed. "Shared sleeping arrangements on my world involve synchronized environmental regulation among all participants. It enhances rest quality and strengthens social bonding." Elena leaned forward with obvious interest. "That sounds incredibly efficient. Our sleep studies consistently show that environmental factors like temperature and humidity significantly impact sleep quality. Precisely why isolation sleeping is so problematic," Zephyrah said. "Individual environmental regulation is inefficient and incomplete compared to collective optimization." Tom, who had been listening while checking equipment readings, looked up with a thoughtful expression. "You know, that might explain why my sleep has been terrible since my wife started working night shifts. I always assumed it was just the schedule change, but maybe there's more to it." The experimental proposal. Over the following days, Zephyrah's presence in the facility created an atmosphere of intellectual excitement mixed with growing personal tensions. Her research methods involved close observation of the human researchers, monitoring their sleep patterns, stress levels, and interpersonal interactions with an intensity that was both professionally fascinating and personally unsettling. Marcus found himself increasingly aware of Zephyrah's proximity throughout each day. Her alien beauty was undeniable, but more compelling was her genuine intellectual curiosity and the way she challenged his assumptions about human behavior. Every conversation revealed new perspectives that forced him to reconsider long-held beliefs about sleep, comfort, and social connection. Elena appeared equally affected by Zephyrah's presence, though she expressed her interest more openly. During their daily research discussions, Elena would position herself closer to Zephyrah, ask more personal questions about her homeworld, and volunteer to assist with various observational experiments. "I've been thinking about your comfort deficiency theory," Elena said during one afternoon session. "My own sleep quality has been poor for months, ever since my roommate moved out. I attributed it to lifestyle stress, but the timing correlation is interesting." Zephyrah nodded knowingly. Sudden transition from shared to isolated sleeping arrangements often produces measurable physiological disruption. Your body had adapted to companionship patterns and now struggles with solitary rest. Marcus observed this exchange with growing unease, not because of the scientific discussion, but because of the evident attraction developing between Elena and Zephyra. Professional jealousy was an unfamiliar emotion for him, and he struggled to understand why their connection affected him so strongly. Tom, meanwhile, had become an unexpected participant in Zephyra's research. His practical approach to problem-solving and straightforward personality seemed to intrigue her, and she often sought his perspective on human social dynamics. "Your species exhibits fascinating contradictions," Zephyra observed during one evening discussion. "You demonstrate strong capacity for emotional bonding, yet actively maintain barriers that prevent optimal comfort and connection." "Maybe that's because optimal comfort means different things to different people," Tom suggested. "Some folks need more space, others need more closeness. Not everyone wants to share everything." "But what if individual preferences have been shaped by artificial cultural restrictions rather than natural inclinations?" Zephyra countered. "What if humans have learned to suppress natural comfort-seeking behaviors?" This question led to an extended debate about nature versus nurture, cultural conditioning, and the possibility that modern human sleeping arrangements were actually contrary to optimal mental and physical health. The discussion continued late into the evening, with all four researchers contributing observations and theories. As the conversation progressed, Marcus noticed subtle changes in group dynamics. Physical proximity had increased gradually, with everyone sitting closer together than usual. Elena had positioned herself so that her shoulder occasionally brushed against Zephyra's arm. Tom appeared more relaxed than Marcus had seen him in months, and even Marcus found himself leaning forward to participate more actively in the discussion. "I propose a controlled experiment," Zephyra announced suddenly. Willing participants could experience modified sleeping arrangements while maintaining comprehensive physiological monitoring. This would provide empirical data regarding comfort deficiency theory. Elena immediately expressed interest, while Tom appeared thoughtful but non-committal. Marcus felt conflicted between scientific curiosity and personal apprehension about the implications of such an experiment. What exactly would this experiment involve? Marcus asked carefully. Graduated introduction of companionship during rest periods, Zephyra explained. Beginning with shared environmental space while maintaining individual sleeping surfaces, progressing toward more integrated arrangements based on participant comfort levels and physiological responses. Shared environmental space meaning what, exactly? Tom asked. Multiple sleeping areas within the same room, allowing for social proximity without requiring physical contact, Zephyra clarified. This arrangement permits natural comfort-seeking behaviors while respecting individual boundaries. Elena nodded enthusiastically. That actually sounds quite reasonable. We could set up monitoring equipment to track sleep quality, stress hormones, and other relevant metrics. Marcus realized that his colleagues were seriously considering Zephyra's proposal, and he found himself torn between professional interest and personal concerns about the potential complications of such intimate research arrangements.